Yeah.
Right, here we go. We'll get a notification in a second. It says it's now streaming. Here we go. Let's go.
We are live on Facebook.
We are.
Welcome, Claire. Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, it's really, really good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. There's been a lot of excitement about it. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'd be happy to introduce myself. So after my very brief live yesterday, so just to give a bit of perhaps a more full introduction. So my name's Claire Jones, and I run a business called Your One Life Healthy Weight Solutions, which I founded myself back in 2019. And I decided to do it because I'd had a very long history of struggling with my weight for about 25 years, yo-yo dieting, gaining and losing the same amount of weight over and over again, having a terrible relationship with food, not really understanding why I couldn't control myself around food. Food was kind of all consuming, also thinking about when I'm going to eat next, and couldn't have things in the house without scoffing them, all of that sort of thing. And then sort of over a period of a few years, from between 2006 to 2011, I completely overhauled my lifestyle because I realized how much my lifestyle was really impacting on my health and my quality of life, and something had to change. And then a few more years went by, and I realized that I'd actually got right on top of it. I was no longer worried about putting my weight back on, and I felt I had achieved balance in terms of how I was living my life, really, and everything felt really good, and it was something I wanted to continue. And then sadly, my father passed away in 2018, and he left me some money, and I realised that whilst I enjoyed my job, I was a senior manager in the NHS. I really enjoyed it, and I'd had a variety of jobs over the years, and I'd also been a prison officer and a drug and alcohol worker, and I'd seen kind of the whole range of life issues that people have, both from birth to death, really. And I've seen, even saw babies being born and people dying, so I've seen everything and everything in between. And it kind of really, I suppose, it brought it home to me just how precious life is, and that we only get one, hence why I call my business Your One Life. And it's not a practice run, and actually nobody else is coming to save us, and we kind of need to, if we want to make the most of our life, we kind of got to take a bit of healthy control over it. So I realized that I'd been able to achieve something that not very many people have, because the statistics are really quite grim when it comes to weight loss and other sort of forms of trying to change our lifestyles. We tend to revert back to old patterns when things get busy and stressful. And I realized that, I'd been through some of the most difficult periods of my life, including losing my dad and also looking after him. And I actually had been able to manage my weight through that. It was no longer when bad things happen, I will automatically put my weight back on. That just didn't happen. And I'm like, I've got something to offer here that other people could benefit from. And my dad was very much around, he was a university lecturer, and he was also passionate about health and well-being. And I kind of thought, using my inheritance to develop a business that is in line with his values as well as my own, I just thought that's what I need to do. And I say 4 years later, here I am, absolutely loving it, and knowing that I've found my vocation, and I just love the magic that I see every day in terms of the difference that my work is making to people, and how they're then paying that forward and inspiring others. And it's just so exciting. So that's me.
So why do we find it so hard to lose weight and get that motivation to lose weight?
Well, that is a bit of a big question, and actually one that has quite a simple answer. And I think it's one of those, once we really understand that simple answer, it can unblock the way a little bit. And that simple answer is, we are not designed to lose weight voluntarily. We are designed to put on weight when food is available. So we are hardwired to eat lots of it when it's available, and we have stretchy stomachs for that reason, so we can fit more in, so that we can then lay down that extra energy that we don't need to use at the time for later when food is scarce, which is our survival instincts. This is our survival mechanisms that we've got, highly brilliant, but unfortunately, the world we live in now, for those of us who are, you know, lucky to know that, you know, that where our next meals are coming from and that we can feed ourselves, food is not scarce. Food is never scarce. So we have to create an environment where it becomes scarce. And of course, if we think from an evolutionary perspective that when food is scarce, we get hungry. And when we get hungry, it gives us that drive to seek out more food. So of course, when we put ourselves into an artificial position of trying to lose weight, we immediately are in conflict with our survival instincts. And that's never going to be easy.
No.
So if we understand that that's what's happening, then we need to approach it differently. We need to approach it in a way that is going to not put us into conflict with our survival instincts. So, and that's the work that I do. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to answer that in lots of detail right now, but you know, I can certainly give a few tips as we go through this chat today about, you know, simple things that people can do to start to, you know, change that position and come at it from a position of positivity as opposed to a position of lack. And this is going to be really hard, because it is hard, you know, but it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it.
You almost sort of, everyone starts a diet on a Monday, don't they? And it's like this big dread coming up to Monday.
That's it, because ultimately it's not about the weight. It's about the fact that we need to change our behavior. We need to change how we eat. We need to change what we eat. We need to change how much we eat. And go against all of our natural behaviors, because the way we currently like to eat, or the way we currently eat rather, is how we like to eat. So of course we don't really want to change that, do we? We might want the end result, but we don't want to have to do the work that's going to get us there. And that's why it's really hard to get motivated about it. So we have to change what we want. We have to truly want to change how we eat and how much we eat. Otherwise we'll always be feeling like we're in denial and not in a good place. So the first opportunity that comes up to give in, we'll give in. You know, when things get busy and stressful, or we'll get you know, this time of year, you know, temptations are everywhere, and it's don't worry, I'll just have what I want right now, and I'll start it on Monday, or I'll start in January, I'll start tomorrow, just not right now, because right now I don't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So what advice could you give, or to get started, what would be the best approach?
Okay, so the traditional ways that we tend to think about losing weight is, right, okay, I'm going to overhaul all my whole life starting on Monday.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday comes and we're like, that didn't go too well, did it?
Yeah. And you tend to, that weekend before as well, you tend to absolutely stuff your face, don't you?
The Last Supper. Yeah, we have the Last Supper. And the Last Supper might actually start on Tuesday, because Tuesdays, you know, Monday went pear-shaped. So I'll start next Monday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and especially Sunday, clear out all the cupboards by eating everything in them. And that just, you know, it just puts us into this all or nothing scenario. So we need to try and get away from this all or nothing scenario. So what I say to people is, don't try and do everything all at once. Rather than go straight from perhaps having some potentially chaotic eating patterns to going straight into trying to achieve maybe quite a strict calorie deficit, let's get some stability first. Let's get some stability. Let's learn how to manage what we're currently eating and how we're currently eating, and learn about how we're currently eating. Do some preparation, because if we don't know what needs to change, how are we actually going to make the changes that we need as individuals? Because yes, there are lots of diets out there that we can follow, and they do have their place. And my position on diets is I'm neutral. You know, there is something for everybody. And if someone comes to me and says, I want to do Weight Watchers, but I just really struggle to stick with it, I'll support them to do that. I will explain and help them to understand why it's so hard to stick to and how they can turn it around to their advantage. Equally, you know, any other approaches out there, or if they want to kind of, you know, come up with their own version of it, which personally I think is better for most people, because it then puts you into a way of eating that feels right and comfortable for you without kind of overhauling everything. So the first thing is spend a couple of weeks just monitoring what you currently do, so that you can see where you might be able to make some small tweaks that could actually have a big impact. I mean, I put a post out on my Facebook this morning, basically saying if the only time you track your food and drink is when you're actively trying to lose weight, you're missing out on a whole load of learning that you could then benefit from, or a whole load of information that you could then learn from. And actually, as long as you do it without judgment, because let's face it, as I said earlier, we're hardwired to desire food. Food is supposed to be enjoyable. If we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't want to eat it. Therefore, we wouldn't survive. So forgive ourselves for being human and wanting to eat nice food. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need to learn how to put some sensible boundaries around it. And by taking stock of what we're doing and just maybe keeping a food and drink diary for a couple of weeks without judgment, just simply recording what we're doing, raises our awareness in the same way as it raises our awareness when we go shopping and we look at the prices and we check our bank balance and we go, can I afford that? It's the same kind of principle, because at the end of the day, we all have an individual energy budget of how much we can eat without putting on weight. And if we go above that, we'll put on weight. If we go below it, we'll lose it. But how do we know what we actually need to maintain? And when it comes to living, we want to be living most of our lives in maintenance. So the way that I see it, we have two options. We either maintain our weight or we lose our weight. Gaining weight is an option that we don't want to go into. So by starting from a position of learning how to maintain our weight, we then put ourselves in a really solid place from which to say, well, okay, so if this is what I need to do to maintain my weight, then all I need to do is cut a few things out or down temporarily to lose weight.
Yes.
And then it will happen.
Yeah.
But we have to understand where we're starting from. If we don't understand where we're starting from, we're always going to be on the back foot, and it's always going to be a challenge, or more of a challenge than it needs to be. So that would be my advice, is just take stock of what you're doing without judgment. Be kind to yourself. Accept that you like nice food and you want to eat more of it than perhaps is good for you. We all do, because that's what we're designed to do. And the food manufacturers and the retailers, they know that. So they're manipulating us all of the time. And we have to get wise to that. Because if we don't get wise to that, then we're always going to be destined to be overweight.
Yeah. I was working earlier this year somewhere near Greggs, and I'm a sucker for a Greggs cappuccino. So I end up having a Greggs cappuccino every day. And over the course of a few months, I put on a few pounds.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And then,
120 calories a day, more than we need, we'll put on a stone in a year. And that 120 calories is probably in that Greggs.
Yeah. And then I've stopped working there, and I'm not having a Greggs cappuccino my weight it's not been noticeable like quick, but after a few months, my weight has come back down again.
Amazing. Yeah. I've just realised, I'm so sorry, Kathy. I've forgot to press record. I'm just pressing record now, so you'll get a thing pop up. But we'll still have the recording for everybody to watch in the Facebook group anyway. So we've not lost anything. So nobody needs to worry, because it will be available to watch back. Apologies about that. But yes, it is so easy to put on weight without realizing it. And this is why having an awareness of what we're eating can make such a difference. As long as we're doing it without judgment and we're not kind of, getting obsessed about it. It's about just, in the same way as we wouldn't say to somebody who is struggling with their money, it's all right, don't look at your bank balance, don't look at the prices, spend as much as you like. We just wouldn't say that. And it's the same principle here. It's about taking responsibility for what we're putting in our mouths, because nobody makes us do anything. It's down to us how much we eat. And if we know what we're doing, and we improve our knowledge and understanding of the energy density that's in the food that we're eating, and also the makeup of the food we're eating, so we're getting a balanced diet, and obviously the ideal is that we reduce as much as we can, things that, like, what are known as the ultra processed foods, which are the foods that are high calorie, highly tasty, highly desirable, but low in nutritional value. If we can try and switch our diets so that we're having less of those and more of the nutrient dense, minimally processed foods. The way that I like to talk about it is, if you think about it from like an 80-20 principle, if 80% of your diet is as healthy as you can get it, and it doesn't have to be perfect, my diet is certainly far from perfect, then we got 20% of our energy intake for whatever we fancy. And then there's no restriction, and that could be based over a day, or it could be based over a week. So if you know that you're going out for a meal at the weekend and you want to really be able to enjoy that, if you've worked out how your meals are going to plan out for the whole week, you can then sort of build a saving in the same way as, if you go on holiday, you don't, the ideal world, we would save up before we go, so we've got our spending money. A little bit like that. But again, we've got to do it without judgment and not from a position of deprivation. This is simply about awareness and making logical and rational decisions. Because the problem that we have with food is that our desire for food and the decisions we tend to make about food come from our primitive part of our brain, because that's where our the survival instincts sit. So deep down, there is a part of us that believes that if we don't eat this food now, and if we don't eat as much of it as we can now, we'll never be able to eat it again, and we will die.
Yeah.
But that is just not true. When you take a step back and you go, why do I need to eat this so much? Why do I want to eat this so much? And actually, how is my life going to be different in half an hour? Apart from the fact that I might end up putting on weight because I'm eating too much of it. It's like, if you eat that food or you don't, you can go out and get it anytime you like. It doesn't have to be eaten now. So another kind of little tip that I would give is, as well as obviously not trying to do everything at once, is just make sure whenever you eat, you ask yourself the question, am I physically hungry right now?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, fine, eat. If the answer is no, check in with yourself again in half an hour or an hour, and go off and do something distracting, but make sure whatever it is going to be intellectually distracting, so that you don't feed the craving by thinking about it. You just think, because a lot of the time we want to eat is just out of habit or cravings or boredom or emotional reasons and all of that sort of thing. And it's being able to break that connection between the emotional reason of why we want to eat and then actually eating. Just because we want to eat doesn't mean we have to. We do still have a choice. We have a choice to break that connection. So by asking ourselves, whatever we might be craving, could be the our most favorite, most unhealthy food in the world. If that's what we're craving, we're not really hungry. So, well, wait until I am hungry, then I can have it. It's no problem. And gradually over time, by raising our awareness about what we're doing, we can make small changes that add up to big impact over time, without being all focused on a particular amount of weight to lose or a particular thing to achieve. It's just thinking about how we live in our lives each day and wanting to treat our bodies and our minds with the respect that they deserve. Because they're looking after us, we need to look after them.
That's right.
We only get one life, we only get one body, we only get one mind, and what we eat has a big impact on how we feel each day. And if we want to feel good, we want to be filling our bodies with nourishing food that is nourishing for both mind and body. And this is what I often talk about. If the thing that you're about to do to deal with whatever stress is going on, or emotional upset or upheaval or whatever, where we tend to reach for food to make us feel better, is like, actually, is it really going to make you feel better? How are you going to feel in half an hour? Are you really going to feel that you've benefited from that? So it's about thinking, what else can you do in those situations that's going to be good for both mind and body? Because it might make you feel better in the moment for your mind at that moment, but your body is not going to be benefiting from it if you're eating food that you don't need, and it's not good quality food. So it's about being able to just, again, without judgment, just ask yourself the questions. Is this what I'm about to do? Is this going to help me? Is this really going to help me? Because if it is, great. But if it's going to help you in the moment, but it's going to make you feel shit later, or it's going to lead to weight gain, then, which is also going to make you feel shit, then can you do something else? And I often talk about, don't just take stuff away. Whatever we take away, we're going to miss. So we need to be able to replace it with something that's of equal or better value than the food that we were going to eat. So something is going to make us feel good, both physically and mentally. Just getting out into nature is a great thing to do. Just taking stock of what's around us. Even on the most miserable day, there are little nuggets of gold that we can find. And it's about thinking about that. Just going for a nice hot soak in a bath, giving yourself some time to just switch off and relax and do something nice. If it's just reading a favorite chapter of a book, or watching a favorite film, and not with the snacks. And this is where I think a lot of us, we end up with these habits where one thing leads to another. So if we're sitting down on the sofa watching TV, that means we have to eat. Why does it mean we have to eat? And it's deconstructing some of these these associations that we've made. You know, I know for me, whenever my husband says, "Oh, should we go to the cinema?" My first thought is, "Oh, what film are we going to watch? It's what flavour Ben and Jerry's, and am I going to have?"
Yeah.
You know, because it's cinema equals ice cream
Yeah.
in my head, you know, and that's okay because I can make room for it. I can, you know, adjust my intake so that I can do that and enjoy it. Another thing that I often talk about is what I call the law of diminishing taste. And this is where, if you imagine, you know, this favorite food and you're hungry, and the first mouthful is just like heaven. It's just the most delicious thing you've ever tasted in your entire life. And then you eat another mouthful, and then you eat another mouthful, and you eat another mouthful, and you're starting to get perhaps full. It's starting to feel a bit sickly, but we carry on eating it because it's there and we've got to finish it. Haven't we?
Yeah.
Have we really? If we stop eating at the point where it just starts to feel okay, put it away, come back to it later when you're hungry again. You enjoy it so much more, you know. And it's being able to learn that restraint. And another little tip that is really helpful, I think, is to remember that, going back to the survival instincts that I was talking about earlier, that when we get really hungry, it's like feeding time at the zoo in our heads, you know, because we end up just eating anything, and we eat fast and we don't appreciate it. And then we end up overeating because we weren't paying attention to how much we were eating. And then we don't stop feeling hungry until it's too late.
Yeah.
So we want to do two things here. We want to avoid getting 10 out of 10 hungry, because that's when it's feeding time at the zoo. Or if you imagine, you know, if you have a dog or a cat, what they like at feeding time, it's like, you know, there's no stopping them, is there? You know, it's survival of the fittest. You know, it's whoever gets in there first. And that is what's going on in our brains. It's survival of the fittest. We've got to have that food. We've got to have it now, because if we don't, we're going to die. That's what's driving that behavior. So we can avoid getting into that position in the first place by never letting ourselves get beyond the 7 out of 10 on the hunger scale, because then we've still got the ability to stay rational about what we're doing, and therefore we can eat more slowly. And when we eat more slowly, we give our brain the chance to catch up that we've eaten enough, and so we can stop at an appropriate time and not after it's too late. So it's all of these little things that can really add up and make a big difference to how well we manage our weight without even setting foot near a diet.
Yeah.
You know.
And a lot of people out there have lost weight and then put it back on the yo-yo diet, which is, it's so common. So how do you get the motivation then to start again? Sorry, my dog keeps snoring. I keep trying to wake him up.
Yeah, well, the way that I like to kind of think about losing weight is it's a little bit like walking a tightrope across 2 skyscrapers. It takes a lot of effort to kind of build up the motivation to give it a go, especially if we've done it a lot before. And so I'm only going to fail again, aren't I? Because I've always failed before. So we're kind of a bit half-hearted before we've even started. And then we're walking this tightrope, and it's really windy up there because we're really high up. And then a gust of wind comes along, and we fall off, and we just end up going back to all our old habits. And then it can take a little while before we summon up the enthusiasm to start again. But by changing our whole approach to how we eat and understanding, you know, what's going on underneath, and gradually sort of looking at how we can change our habits gradually, what we're doing is we actually start to build a really solid safety net underneath that tightrope. So that if we do fall off, we can recognize, well, it's just a day that went a bit pear-shaped. What did I learn from that? Why did that happen? And how can I make sure that I don't do that today? We just get back on. We might need a little bit of a rest, but we're not going to fall all the way back down, because we start to realize that we're in control, that we have the power to make the changes. We're not at the mercy of anybody. We have, you know, because at the end of the day, if we put on weight, it can, and I, speaking from experience, very, you know, plenty of experience of this, was, you know, feeling powerless to do anything about my weight. And if my weight started to creep back up, I would think, well, that's it, it's inevitable. And then it would become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I would just continue to overeat. And there I'd go, how did I let that happen? How did that happen? And I'd be blaming it on medication, I'd be blaming it on life events, I'd be blaming it on anything except me, you know. But then it was going to my doctor, and I'd been on some antidepressants because I've been through a very difficult time. and I sort of, you know, had a bit of a struggle to cope, and I'd resisted going on the antidepressants for a little while because I knew from previous experience that I would gain weight. And but I got to the point where I just wasn't really feeling I was improving, and I can't, you know what, maybe I really do need to go on these antidepressants. So I said, okay, I'll go on them. So I went on them, and then 3 months later went back and 2 stone heavier, and said, see, I told you they'd make me put on weight. And he said to me, they didn't make you put on weight. They didn't put food in your mouth. You put food in your mouth. I was a bit upset about that, because it's not very sympathetic. How dare he? How dare he say that? I'm really upset, you know, and I've come to him for help, and he's basically, you know, being quite rude and unhelpful. And then I went away, and I thought, I am so grateful to him for saying that and making me actually face up to the fact that only I was responsible for putting food in my mouth.
Yeah.
And it was down to me to then start to become aware of all the different influences and how I could actually do something different.
Yeah.
That was one of there was a number of defining moments along my journey that kind of really cemented the changes for me. But it was that was, you know, I mean, obviously it sticks in my mind to this day, because it was so very powerful, and it made me face up to the reality that I was responsible.
Yeah.
Then what it made me realize, if I was responsible for gaining weight, I was responsible and able and had the power to do something about it.
Yes.
But coming back to the original question about how can we get motivated, obviously understanding what's going on is really important, but then we need to make sure we're pinning it on something important enough. We've got to feel uncomfortable enough with our current situation in order to be able to change, because we don't want to have to do the work. So for me, the defining principles really were about self-respect, you know, treating my body and my mind well, because I wasn't, you know, I was filling my body with you know, low quality nutrition. I was feeling crap because I was feeding myself crap. And when I say crap, and by that I kind of, you know, I don't like to be judgmental about food, but in terms of, you know, most of my food was coming from ultra processed, low nutrition food. So of course I was not going to be benefiting from that. So it sort of came from a position of, I was in my mid-30s, and I was a smoker as well. And I could see 40 coming, and then 50. I'm 50 now. I could see 40 coming, and thinking and going how I was feeling, and how, you know, how uncomfortable it was to move and things like that. That I was like, where am I going to be in another 10 years if I don't do something about this? Carry on with this lifestyle. I'm only in my 30s. Is this what I want for myself? And I realized it wasn't, and I needed to pull my finger out and do something about it. But I also knew that there were certain things that I'd tried, obviously going on diets, that I would just rebound from, because I wasn't working on the foundational stuff. And what I realized, that what I really needed to do was prepare myself properly and work on my mindset and work on what it was that I really wanted. And that was to feel good every day, not just lose the weight. You know, I wanted to feel good in my body every day, and that starts with what we put into our mouths, you know, and how much we put into our mouths. And also the other thing that I kind of really came to realize, that I think was such a game changer for me, was about, you don't have to lose weight all in one go. And I'm like, once I kind of realized that I could actually do it in stages and learn how to maintain in between, that changed everything for me. Because what I realized about myself was that trying to lose weight continuously was really exhausting. And actually what I came to realize, obviously then when I sort of started to do all my training, because I retrained when I left my job, and did all sorts of learning as I learned how to do the role that I do now, is that actually our bodies don't like to be in a calorie deficit continuously. So because that's working against our biology. As soon as we do that, our bodies try to fight back by making us more hungry. If we're trying to do lots of exercise at the same time as losing weight, we're burning the candle at both ends, especially for women. So we might see men getting great results from that, but women, it's so much harder because our bodies don't want us to lose the weight. That's what we have to remember. Our bodies do not want us to lose the weight. So if we put ourselves into a continual calorie deficit, yes, it might work for a period of time, but eventually we'll give up because it's too exhausting. Something happens, maybe we get ill or we get injured because we're burning the candle at both ends, and we are asking too much of our bodies. And it actually changes the way we think. If you think about a plate of food when you're really hungry versus a plate of food when you're not hungry, you will see two different plates of food.
Yes.
And how you feel about those two different plates of food will be completely different. If you're hungry, you'll go, I don't care about the diet can start tomorrow. When you're not hungry, you can look at that and go, yeah, I don't want it right now. Or if I do, I can, I'm on a diet, so I'm not going to have it right now. I can resist it. I can use my willpower, whatever.
Yeah.
But we'll have completely different attitudes according to how hungry we're feeling. So we don't want to be ramping up the hunger by doing lots of exercise. Walking is the very best exercise for weight loss. And then other forms of exercise are absolutely brilliant for maintenance. So if you think we've got two options when it comes to weight management, maintenance or calorie deficit, and we can switch between the two. Every day. We don't have to be in a calorie deficit every day.
Yeah.
We can be in maintenance some days, calorie deficit another day, according to what's going on in your life. Dial up the effort, dial down the effort according to what's going on, so that you're not continually putting yourself under lots and lots of pressure to be perfect and achieve a certain result in a certain amount of time. Because it's the timescales that we attach to it, and the weight goals that we attach to it that kind of derail us, really, because we get focused on them rather than focused on what are the things I need to do each day that are going to get me there.
So even you saying that makes me want to take a deep sigh and say, oh, thank God for that. Because it is a lot of pressure, isn't it? We do put ourselves under so much pressure to start this diet, keep this diet, lose the weight. You've got to get to that goal. It's so hard, as well as juggle everything else you have to juggle in your life.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
it. You'll get there as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, just the same as if you were going on a hike to the top of a hill. How you get there is by putting one foot in front of the other. Occasionally you might take a slight detour and get a little bit lost, but then you can look at where the hill is and you can say, oh, okay, I just need to turn around a little bit and go back.
Yeah.
And as long as we're not going into reverse, which is the weight gain, then we're still winning. A lot of my clients say to me that, for the first time in their lives, they're not yo-yoing anymore because they're recognizing that standing still is still progress.
Yes, because you're
until they're ready to go again.
Yeah, you're managing your weight, aren't you, rather than fighting it.
That's it. But it's got to be pinned on something important enough. And the problem, another problem that we really struggle with as we lose weight, is that the closer we get to our goal, the harder it becomes because we're feeling more comfortable. We're feeling more happy with what we're doing. So having something really powerful to pin it on can be really helpful. I try to steer people away from particular events and things like that, because that's kind of not really deep enough. And what really changed for me was having a motivation that was higher than the weight. So for me, when I obviously you can see behind me, I have a few medals. I started running, and the reason I started running was because I wanted to stop smoking, and I knew that part of me didn't really want to stop. So I had to really ramp up the benefits of not smoking. And I thought, well, getting fit would probably be quite a good thing, and running and smoking aren't really that compatible. So running. And that's when I found that losing weight whilst running doesn't really work for lots of people. So for me, I piled on loads of weight whilst running. Because it just made me really hungry, and I was thinking, oh well, I can eat whatever I like because I've done all this running. So you have to, yes, you need to eat more. If you want to exercise more at high intensity, you need to eat more, but not so much more that you put yourself into a surplus, which is what I was doing. So I started running, and then once I kind of really figured out how to manage my weight and run and not end up piling it on, this is where I learned actually that cycling between periods of focusing on diet and then not doing too much exercise, and then focusing on exercise and eating to support the exercise, because you have to fuel. Because if you think about exercise, it's not just about the calories burned, it's about the resources your body needs. And we need to replace that. And if we're cutting our calories too much, how can we replace what our bodies need? We just can't. So that's when we get ill or we're injured, and our routine falls out the window, and we end up not going back to the gym that we signed up for, and or not going back to the Couch to 5K program, or not going back to the exercise classes or whatever, because we've lost that motivation, because it was only ever temporary. It wasn't big enough. So for me, where it really changed was, and so once I'd kind of really figured all this out, and I got really fit, and I was kind of happy with my my weight and my size, and I was wearing the clothes I wanted to wear, and I felt really good. Obviously at that point I'd been there many times before, so there's all that danger of, well, it's going to go back on again, isn't it? So at that point I still felt very vulnerable. And then an opportunity came up for me to join the fire service as a part-time firefighter. And I was fit, but I had no strength. And obviously you need a lot of strength to be a part-time firefighter. So I went down to my local gym and I said, right, this is all things I need to be able to do. Can you write me a program to be able to do this? So I started off with my program, and then I got in through the training and did the training. And of course, all of my focus was on being fit and strong and eating to support that.
Yeah, amazing.
My weight was not even on the radar at that point. And then a couple of years went by, and I could see just how much my body had changed and how good I felt from all of this daily living in that way.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized that actually the motivation not being about the weight, but about living a healthy life each day, that was what changed it for me.
Yes.
Whereas if we're just focused on lose weight, we're not really thinking about what does that actually mean. That's when it's going to be superficial, and we're not going to be wedded enough to it to resist the temptations.
Yeah, so true. So to finish, can you give a tip on where people could start? There's
so many. There's so many, but I think the very first thing is just keep a food diary for a couple of weeks and just see what you can learn from that about yourself, and then go from there.
Yeah,
see and what quick wins you can make.
Because I could imagine that's probably uncomfortable enough, isn't it? Just for a few weeks, like you say, no judgment, just writing it down, what you eat, don't judge yourself.
That's it. That's it. And it's because food is not to be demonized. Food is there for nourishment, for pleasure, and for many things. Unfortunately, we do tend to use it inappropriately at times, but just thinking about as we're coming into the Christmas season, obviously one of the things that I do to manage myself through Christmas is I keep a record of what I'm doing, because that way I know that I'm not going to overdo it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, as I said earlier, the energy budget we each of us have, if we go over that, we're going to gain weight. And obviously gaining weight at Christmas is very common. Gaining a couple of pounds over Christmas is not a big deal, as long as we kind of, sort it out afterwards. But for me and many of the people that I work with, gaining a stone or more between the beginning of November and the end of December is not unheard of, and possibly more, because it's so easy to eat too many of the high calorie, high density, highly tasty, desirable foods. So by actually just keeping a bit of a record of what you're doing, and just bearing in mind what your energy budget is for maintenance and how much over that you could potentially be going each day if you're not careful, then you can look at, well, over Christmas, what are all the things that I really want to eat, and which are the ones that I'm not so bothered about. And as long as you get the ones you really want, and that you get on top of getting some balance, and you maybe get out and do some exercise, just even if it's just gentle walking or brisk walking, just getting outside and enjoying the being outside or being active, to help to balance and counteract some of the richer foods. Because we're not designed to be sedentary creatures. And the way that I like to think about exercise is it's not about punishment, or I've earned this many calories to be able to eat. It's not about that. It's about just the fact that we're not designed to be sedentary. We're designed to move, and obviously movement supports our bodies in terms of processing all those food that we're eating. So it's a win-win. you know,
Yeah,
if
definitely.
we do both. So yeah, so I think just start by just observing what you're doing and raising
Yeah.
your awareness and just asking yourself, are you hungry every time you eat?
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
from
that's been brilliant, Claire. It's been really, really good, really insightful, really, really
there.
helpful, and really
Oh,
interesting. I've taken
oh,
loads away from it.
oh,
Um,
I'm so pleased. So obviously, you know, if anybody has any questions about any of the things that we've covered today, I will obviously take a look in the comments and obviously come back to you. If anybody wants to drop me a private message, because I know this is a very sensitive subject and a lot of people feel a lot of shame and guilt around their behaviours around food and also about their weight. And if people don't feel comfortable with obviously saying so, you know, in front of others, then if they want to message me privately and have a chat, you know, and I do offer free consultations if people are interested in sort of working with me, if they feel that this is something they don't feel they can manage on their own. You know, that's the whole point of the work that I do, really.
and you
So
have a Facebook group as well, don't you?
I do, and I'll pop the link to the group in
Yeah.
there. But obviously, if anyone's watching and they can just on there now, they could just look up Your One Life Healthy Weight Solutions group,
Yeah.
and then just put a join request in, and obviously I'll accept you. And yeah, we do various things in my group. Yeah, so thank you very much, Catherine, for having me. And yeah, I'd be love to come back again at any time. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Now I just have to figure out how to end it.
Okay, so I'll stop the live stream for you. So.
Okay.